Welcome. I am very excited to have you here with not just me. I also have a fellow teacher. I'm Laura. David is joining us, and you have not one, you have two AP World History experts at your disposal today. So no matter what's going on, take a deep breath. Get ready to feel better about AP. So you're here for this entire hour. We actually have 2 more hours of prep coming up that you're welcome to join us for. But right now, it's AP World History Modern. We are going to be looking at specific questions that are going to help you to think about your prep, and you're going to be able to take what you learned today and apply it to specifically what's going to help you. So again, my name is Laura. We have David. Please participate in the chat. David's here to help, and I'll be able to see that chat as well. So let me go ahead and get us started. We actually pulled together this presentation with you in mind because we know you're probably at home right now, not quite sure what to do. AP prep, it can be done anytime, but specifically prepping smarter, not harder is something Kaplan's known for. So what we do is we take a look at the material and we decide based on what CollegeBoard has told us. CollegeBoard is the test maker, so it's a good source of information. What are the high yield content areas? And in particular, for this time period from 1200 to 1450, there are 3 particular high yield content areas that we're going to be looking at today. But it's not just going to be facts, names, dates, people, places. We're going to look at questions. These are test-like questions, and we're going to reflect after you've answered each question. So let's get started right away. This first question, I pulled it from a question set. So I had the privilege of working on the AP World History Modern Prep Plus book. So that means that I've seen these questions before. I know them. I know they're modeled after official test questions, which makes a difference. So looking at this question, this is just one question out of a question set. All of the questions that you're going to see in the multiple choice section, they are stimulus-based. So that means that you're going to have a pretty picture, or you're going to have a text, or you're going to have something to use to your advantage. So taking a look at this particular pretty picture, we have a map, and at the very bottom, it says that it depicts canals, those are the light lines, highways, those are the dark lines, built into the early city of Baghdad. Okay, so we've got canals. What else do we have here? If you take a look at this picture, and actually I'm going to go ahead and use my cursor instead, we can see that we have a river. And again, it's the highways and the canals that are going to be super helpful for this question. So what we're going to do next is we're going to take a look at the question, keeping in mind what this particular map is showing. It's showing the infrastructure. So that's just what helps people move around within a city, whether it's a bridge, a canal, and it also has physical features. So it has the river as well. So just taking a look. In just one moment. We are using new technology for this because we want it to broadcast right into your homes. So we are, actually, I'm going to go ahead and unhook this. Perfect. All right. So I'm going to find my cursor. And there we go. All right, so, oh, I see. All right, just a moment. There we go. Here is our question. So I'm going to give you 1 minute so that you can take literally a minute to read this question and answer it. I will be quiet during that time, and then we'll talk about it. Go ahead and look at this question for 1 minute. All right, time's up. So keep in mind that perhaps not, and obviously not everyone works at the same pace, but perhaps you didn't finish the question or you're still thinking about it. You know what's really interesting about this question, and I actually really like this question? Every single answer choice is factually correct. So wait a second. Every single answer choice is correct. Then how is this a question on a test? Well, actually, it has to do specifically with what the question says and what is in the map. So anything you pick out, if you have a map especially, anything you pick out as a correct answer must be directly supported by what information was provided. College Board expects you to think like a historian, and that means that you need to consider primary sources like maps. So for this particular question, the correct answer is indeed A. So if you didn't answer A, you're going to reflect and think, okay, was I tempted because I knew it was true? Do I need to make sure I look at the stimulus? Do I need to make sure I look at the question stem? There are a lot of different ways that you can lead down a path to a trap. And learning about how to get yourself out of there is how you're going to do great on this AP test. So we're going to continue to do that. We're going to model test expert-like thinking, and we're going to be practicing with these amazing questions. So before we move on, and actually I'm going to go ahead and clear out that lovely purple slash. It was just there for, just extra fancy. Now that we have this clear, we can clearly see the exam structure. The reason we're talking about this is because this is the first year. This course, AP World History Modern 2019, is the first year of its rollout. So now in 2020, you're going to be taking the exam. That's actually good news for you. The old exam last year, if you have any friends who took it, it covered a lot of material. 6,000 BCE to the present. That's a lot of stuff. This is 1200 to the present. Still a lot of stuff, but it's a lot easier for you to remember these different names, people, places, than the entire history of the world. So David and I are both really excited that you get a chance to do this. And then another thing to keep in mind that we want to make sure you consider is that you need to have timing down pat by the time you take your exam. You don't want to be thinking, oh my gosh, am I going to get through the whole thing? You should have taken at least one practice exam. We certainly hope more than one practice exam. And the reason is because, and you'll see with our timing today, in the multiple choice section, you have 1 minute per question. 1 minute per question. That's not counting each stimulus. So it's a pretty quick clip. You'll find with section 1, part B, and section 2, you don't have to move nearly as quickly, but you still want to practice that timing. And that timing is going to help you in addition to all the studying you're going to do. So speaking of studying, here we are, our first high yield content area. Commonalities across dynasties. I know dynasties, it's a hard thing to get excited about. And there's a lot of them. And the question is, do I have to memorize all of them? Well, in the previous course, yes, you did. And actually there was a song for it. There still is. There's a song. This course, it is less important to know each unique feature than it is to know the commonalities among the features of these dynasties, although I will say the song's super catchy, so maybe just learn them anyway. But in general, you want to know how things changed over time and what things stayed the same. And you'll see that with 4 different aspects that did actually stay pretty constant among these 3 dynasties. So Mandate of Heaven, that is something that you should know already. If you don't, go ahead and mark it down. We're going to be studying all the rest of this week, so tomorrow and all next week, so you got plenty of time. This is the only day that we're doing the 1200 to 1450. So anything you want to make sure you brush up on, make sure you write that down. Another thing they had in common was the civil service exam system, the bureaucracy. So that's all the organization around the government that they set up. That was very similar among those 3 dynasties. We've got the Grand Canal, and keep this one in mind. There might be a question about it, maybe right after this. So the Grand Canal is something you want to know about and how it affected that particular area within the world. And then religion, always important. And it's important to know that the religion stayed pretty constant throughout these 3 dynasties. So again, the commonalities, the differences, that's what's going to be most important. Oh, look at that. It's like I knew it was coming next. I know, huge surprise. Yeah, so perhaps we're going to answer a question, not just one, we're going to have 2 questions. I know you're so excited. And it seems like, how could this person sitting right here be that excited about history? You know what I am excited about is you feeling better about answering these questions. So that's why I do get a little bit silly, a little bit excited. But this is all for you. So taking a look at this particular picture, again, we're looking at any man-made features, and that of course would be a canal. And we're looking at the area in particular and how it is actually spread out quite a bit, and yet everything's connected because of a canal. So thinking about that theme within world history, and really any history, when you connect places, you're connecting people and languages and goods and services. So thinking about how that helps to unify different areas, and this area in particular is unified from the Grand Canal. All right, so we have another test-like question. I'm going to go ahead and start up a timer again for you. You're going to read the question, pick out an answer, and then we'll talk about it. All right, so, and actually I'm realizing I have you on a different video than before, so I'll make sure I look down here. I'm just checking in with David. All right, so making sure we're all set and everybody can see exactly what I'm seeing. I'm new to this technology, and I'm delighted that Kaplan has brought me in so that I can work with you, because I worked on the book. And so I know a lot about this course, and I'm happy to share it with you. So this question in particular is a great question for us to take a look at. So first I'm going to reveal the correct answer, because I know you're dying to know what the correct answer is. So the correct answer is A. And one thing to keep in mind, if you can eliminate any answer choice, even just one, it's going to increase your chances of answering a question correctly. So if you're using process of elimination, that's not a bad thing, and that can certainly help you throughout your studies. Okay, so how can you eliminate the incorrect answers in this question? Because perhaps you didn't choose answer choice A, or you're thinking, okay, well, if I chose answer choice A, how do I make sure I do it again when I get a similar question? So anything that doesn't match what the picture is showing, as I mentioned before, isn't going to work. So when you saw for C in particular, increased international trade, they're looking at a specific region within one group of people. So that's not going to make a lot of sense. Then you have industrial technologies, it's the wrong time period. So those are common traps. So if it's from the wrong time period, it can't be the correct answer. That doesn't make any sense. If it's from the wrong region or it's too expensive, like answer choice C, that's not correct. That doesn't make any sense. And then for answer choice D, let's say you're not quite sure, you're thinking, oh my gosh, did it, didn't it? That's not a reason to pick an answer. If you're not sure and there's a better one available, like answer choice A, the correct answer, please pick it. Don't pick something because it's unfamiliar. That is not a good technique. And we're here to tell you that. We tested it. David and I have looked at so many tests. Really, we're boring people. We love tests. And we can tell you for sure, if you see something and it's unfamiliar, that's not a reason to pick it. We're going to keep moving along with the Grand Canal, and we're going to look at one more question. And for this question in particular, I want you to consider which one, if you think about canals and whether or not they were positive influences, and you're going to see the question in just a moment, which situation is most similar? I'm going to go ahead and put the next one up for you. So which situation is most similar? If you use process of elimination for this question, you should give yourself a pat on the back. This is the type of question that, unless you are some sort of magician, and I'm not, and I'm constantly surprised by magicians, you're not going to be able to think of an answer that's going to perfectly match one of the choices. Going through each answer choice is really helpful here. And thinking about canals, as I mentioned before you saw the question, they had a positive impact on different regions. So if you are looking at answer choice A, that's very negative, and so should not be one of your viable options. Answer choice B is really great as an option, so keep that around. And then answer choice C is a tricky one that they like to use. So the Silk Road, well, it did include roads, wasn't an actual road somewhere. It was the trade routes. So be careful not to read a word and think, oh, right, road, canal, same thing. Not only that, but B and C both have the word road in them. They can't both be right. So you want to really think about that. And then again, the answer choice D, as we saw in the last one, if you see an answer choice and you're like, oh, I don't remember what that is. Oh, maybe that's what it is, because I don't remember it. Again, not the way to go. We promise you, do not use that technique. So not surprisingly, the correct answer is B. So being able to unite people. And the other key component of this is the fact that it was government sponsored. So the Inca road system and the Grand Canal, the governments within those regions were the ones who paid for it and made sure the project went all the way through, organized all the people, all that fun stuff. So that's another component that makes it a fabulous answer choice. All right, we've got 3 questions in. 3 questions. I think we should do some more. But first, we're going to look at our second high yield content area. So here we go, Mongol Empire. Yeah, I feel like people have mentioned this group before. I feel like they're like really famous in history. They are. You really want to know who they are. There are some really cool videos you can watch. You can turn to your book. There's a lot of different resources to go over this very important group of people. And one person in particular, Genghis Khan, really a big deal. We don't know. There's some speculation about all the intricacies of his life because, you know, it was a long time ago. But in particular, you want to know that his big claim to fame is he united people. Another thing to keep in mind is the Mongols were known for how well they waged war. They did a really great job. But as you'll see, they did a great job for only so long. So it was impressive, and they did have a time of peace. So that was a good thing for not only them but also for the people they conquered. So another thing to consider, they're not the only group that had an area of time of peace. So you are going to want to think about that. Maybe there'll be a question about that. So consider how this is the area of the time of peace when a group is able to achieve that after they've conquered people and places. That is a commonality among different topics. Next thing to consider is how that time of peace impacted trade. And that's going to be a common theme, not just with the Mongols, but also with other groups of people. And then finally, all good things must come to an end. And by good things, I mean good for the Mongols, maybe not for everybody else. They were really good at conquering, like really good, not great at administrating. So it's similar to when you go to a buffet and you're like, and I'll have that, and I'll have that, and I'll have that. And then you try to eat it all. It's just not, the coordination is lacking. So you want to consider all of this and how this group of people really mirrors a lot of different groups, but they did certain things in particular that made them famous. So the first thing you need to do is go ahead and read this question STEM. So again, everything's stimulus based. So we're going to give you, let me give you a minute to read, and then we'll talk about the stimulus, and then it'll be easier to answer the questions. So go ahead and get started. And I apologize. It was different on my screen. It was covering the what you were trying to read. So just a moment. Let's do that again. I'm going to restart it for you. And take two. There we go. Much better. Sorry about that. All right, so this is a source. The question you're about to see is going to ask about what other source would help you to evaluate the accuracy of this one. So we have to first determine what kind of source this is. There are two main types of sources you're using in history class. You have primary and you have secondary sources. David and I already know which one this is, but if you can tell us in the chat, if you want to venture a guess, is this a primary or secondary source given the person, the mode of communication is the letter, and the time period, 1245. So would this be from a history book, a secondary source, or would this be a personal account, a primary source? And if you're not willing to venture a guess, it's okay, we'll tell you. And you just think it in your head and then see if it matches. Ready? Primary source. Was that what you're thinking? I can totally tell. That was what you were thinking. Well, I know that's what David was thinking because, we just love history. So keep that in mind. This is a primary source, and you're going to go ahead and do the next question knowing that this is a primary source, and this was coming from, and actually I'll go back. This is from someone who witnessed Genghis Khan and the Mongols and sent a letter to the Pope. So think about that. And primary source documents. Yes, awesome. Austin, that's exactly right. Primary. Yep. And I forgot too, there's a little bit of a delay in the chat. So that's another thing to consider. But keep that in mind and pick out an answer for question number 1. We're going to give you 1 minute to do it. You might even need less than that, but go ahead. Awesome. Okay, so I'm happy for a couple of reasons. First thing, my very awesome coworkers helped me fix my camera, so big one on that. And second thing, we get to talk about this question, so it's going awesome for me today. All right, so the reason I love this question is because you don't need to know a specific date, a specific person, or a specific place. You get your points just by thinking like a historian, which is what College Board asks you to do. So I'm going to go ahead and reveal this answer. So the first thing you can do in terms of processes of elimination is to get rid of anything that is secondary source, and then pick a group of people or a person that is different from the original source. Excuse me. So if you hear something from one friend and you think, okay, that sounds a little strange, you're not going to go ask the person who is standing next to them. You're going to ask somebody else from a different group for their opinion. So that's something to keep in mind and really helpful because the College Board really likes questions like that. So speaking of questions like that one, let's do one more. Go ahead and take a minute and we'll talk about this momentarily. All right, I love it. We've got some answers in the chat. That is a big deal. We really appreciate your participation. It's hard. You're at home. You don't know everybody else in the chat. We appreciate that you went out on a limb. And congratulations. B is correct. So these questions aren't rote memorization. These questions ask you to consider what 2 very separate empires did in a similar fashion. Very different groups of people, but what they did do is they helped people to communicate in ways they couldn't before because they weren't unified, and they were able to improve technology because they had a lot of smart people talking to each other. And the global economic system happens because of trade. Why does trade happen? When you start having empires that are unifying people. B is correct. So awesome work. Really appreciate the participation. Round of applause for you. Our final high yield content area. Now keep in mind, we have 3 high yield content areas, and then I've got some fantastic takeaways for you that are also accompanied by questions. So we're just doing some review and then questions, review and then questions. And I highly recommend that for your own prep. You know yourself best. You have been going to school for a little while now. It's been a hot minute. You know yourself best. So if you know that you need pencil and paper, you know you need Quizlet, if you know you need a Kaplan book, if you know you need your dog to tell, all these facts and amazing things to, use that. So in particular, for this content area, however you want to study it, keep in mind that there are 3 pieces of information you want to know about important travelers, also sometimes called explorers: where they came from, how they were financed, where they went, and then the significance. So the takeaway from all of these different travelers is what happened because they dared to venture out. So those are the key components of travelers. So again, we're meeting tomorrow and all next week. You have plenty of time to study. You don't have to memorize all of this now, but these names should be familiar to you. And then let's see okay, great. We've got information. What does it look like in a question? Well, you know what? It's all stimulus based. So first thing we do, we take a look at this document. So go ahead and take 1 minute to read this document. And I did it too again. I put it over part of the text. So go ahead and take just a little more time to read through it. I apologize. I have 2 different screens. Thank you for being patient with me. All right, so now that you could actually read what was on the screen, well, that's okay. We're learning together. This is a primary source. It's an account. It was translated, so that definitely is something to take note. But it is an account that gives you real world information about this time period. So thinking about the information you gathered here, you're going to take a look, and actually I'll flip screens for you. I'll show you. So this one asked how the second paragraph is best understood. So in the context of which of the following. So take a look at those answer choices, and then I'll go back to the second paragraph for you. So our options here, and this is mirroring what you're going to do when you take the exam. You're going to see a question. It has, what's really nice is CollegeBoard does underline that. That's very test-like to tell you where to look. And then we call it a vertical scan. It's way less high-tech than it sounds, but you're looking at the first part of each answer choice. So you've got lingering anger. We have resurgence of Han cultural identity, development of a bill of exchange, and we have promotion of both regional and interregional trade. Regional and interregional trade. So that's just the first part of the left-hand side of all those. It's a vertical scan. Let's see what matches within, not the whole thing. They're telling us to look specifically at the second paragraph. So I'm going to go back up and we're going to go back to the second paragraph. We're going to head back over to the question. You're going to pick out an answer. And we have answer choice D. So if you pick something other than D, you want to consider a couple things. So when the stimulus is text, there are additional components you need to consider. Reading comprehension, it seems like obviously you need to read, but being able to understand the primary source documents is really important. So ask yourself, okay, if I didn't answer this correctly, did I not understand the document? If I didn't answer this correctly, was I accidentally looking at the wrong paragraph? If I didn't answer this correctly, was I tempted by a wrong answer trap? What's great about a lot of strong resources, like what we do at Kaplan, we provide answers and explanations. So when you are taking a practice set, and actually one of my colleagues just mentioned this yesterday, it's quality over quantity. So we would rather you get 5 questions done and thoroughly understand why you answered correctly or incorrectly, and use that knowledge to answer more questions than to just fly through 50 questions. Just doing them, checking it, and seeing if you got them right or wrong, and putting the X or the check mark. I mean, that's a start, but that's not what's going to be most helpful for you, because you know yourself best. We have one more question for you in this question set. Go ahead and take a minute to do this next one. All right, it's ready for the reveal. Answer choice D. So reflect again. Did you answer it correctly? If you did, great. Now that seems like that's the end of the road for you for this particular question. You want to know why you got it right, and you got to be honest with yourself. I'm a horrible guesser, so this never happens for me. But I know people who are really good guessers, but it's truly, depending on the situation, either a guess because they just like the letter, or it's actually informed by knowledge you're accessing within your brain. So figure that out. Are you accessing prior knowledge, in which case it's not just a guess, it's an educated guess? Or did you get it right because you really feel good about it? And keeping track of what you do feel good about so you don't spend time on stuff you know you can do really well on test day. And awesome job, Austin. Yep, it's answer choice D. Perfect. Okay, we've got 2 more questions to do regarding this final high yield content area. And then we're going to look at those 6 takeaways I promised that I would show you. So as we did with those other pretty pictures, we are looking for any physical attributes on this map, as well as any infrastructure. Although this says caravan routes. So you've got to Excuse me, I'm gonna cough. Sorry. You've got to consider caravan routes. Okay, what's that look like? Also, what part of the world are you in? Trans-Saharan. Okay, this is not a vacation I would have signed up for. Holy moly, really dry, desert, traveling with the camel. You know, I'm more of a stay inside type of girl. I wouldn't sign up for this, but taking just a moment to consider what is in this map is really going to make a difference for you when you get to the questions. So another thing you can think about too, and we'll get to this question in just a moment, is are you the type of person who can focus for 55 minutes straight? Or are you somebody who you got to draw your attention back in? I personally cannot concentrate for 55 minutes straight, no matter what my supervisor tells me. So what I found, especially on a paper and pencil test, or if you even have scratch paper and you're working on a screen, if you just draw something little like a star, maybe a little flower, nothing intricate like a whole castle, that's just gonna slow you down. But if you can just draw your attention back in, maybe adjust your posture. If you're studying at home, you can take a sip of water, but being able to just refocus, think about the question at hand, the questions before you've already completed, we're looking at this one. So this one, camels, desert, got it. Ready for the next question that goes with camels, desert, got it, pictures. All right, go ahead. I'm gonna be really aware of where the timer is this time. Ready? I'm totally gonna do it right, I think. Now I don't know where the timer is. It's somewhere. Go ahead. I am timing you. You have 1 minute. Go ahead. You may have heard me typing to David. He was helping me find my timer. I'm very glad he did. The correct answer for this one is A. So again, time for reflection, deciding, did you get the correct answer? Did you fall to the wayside? Were you able to refocus? The conversation about focusing distracted your focus. But this, certainly thinking about the map, this is helpful to consider in terms of what you already know. Do you feel comfortable with this answer, or do you feel like, oh, I only got it from process of elimination? So A is the correct answer. Just take a gut check. Okay, did I feel good about that? Is that what I picked? Did I not pick it? And now I understand why that's the correct answer. And you're going to do that continuously, even for the next question right here. This time I am going to put the timer up because David found it for me because he's awesome. Go ahead and do 1 minute on this question. All right, so This is a question. I always love the questions where it really does remind you of the specific structure of the test and how important it is. So the structure of this test starts with section 1A. That's 55 questions in 55 minutes, all stimulus based. That means that even if you find something correct, if it doesn't reflect what was in the map, it can't be the correct answer. It's just not possible. So for this one, D has to be correct because you're traveling through the desert. I mean, not me, I'm not going to do it. But in particular, that phrase, environmental knowledge, should have shone like a bright star bringing you in. Come on, this is the correct answer. And when you practice enough and you practice in a cognizant way, you're aware of what type of practice you're doing, the fact that this is a test-like question, that it's stimulus-based, that's going to highlight these patterns of correct answers. So this one, the environmental knowledge, that's the part that should be bringing you in for a landing to the correct answer. So this question in particular is another one that I absolutely love. I know, we're such nerds. All right, here are the key takeaways. So if you were ever to work with a Kaplan book, and we certainly hope you do, you will notice that we try to do a lot of the hard work for you. So we combed through, it's not even kidding, 150 pages from CollegeBoard of exactly what is in the course and what's on the exam. And we highlighted for you, just like in correct answers, there's a highlight, that bright light. What parts of this particular time period are really important to understand and will best help you to be successful on this exam. Because you did the work for a whole year. I mean, come on, you want the college credit. If for no other reason than to say, I have the college credit. I mean, you want to be rewarded for all that hard work. So the key takeaways, there are 6 in total. The first one is the spread of religion. This is an interesting one because, like I said before, the course last year and for years before that started at 6000 BCE. And so it included a lot of religion. There's still religion, certainly, from 1200 to present day, but it's not so much about the founding of the religions, but how religions impact political considerations, how the religions impact exploration. You want to know how it is affecting a people at a time, and also what messaging a government's using with religion in mind to help get the buy-in from people. So that's what you need to know about the spread of religion. Empires and decentralized areas. So even if something is not underneath an empire, so the Mongols, super impressive, united a whole bunch of people. Even if there's a decentralized area, there's something going on. It's world history. It's not one spot in the world history. It's the whole thing. So keep that in mind. And then as people move, and we know that's certainly happening from 1200 to 1450 and more so 1450 to 1750, which is tomorrow. So I hope you'll join us for that. You need to understand what it is that they're doing, why they're moving around, and what is the end result. So looking into the other time periods, where does that start to flow into? Our final 3, long distance trade, not surprisingly, huge spike in long distance trade. War, disease, famine, not super fun to talk about, but something to consider. So let's say we're talking about either a conquest or there is some sort of disease. How did that affect the people? So if you see that there aren't as many people to do a certain job, does that mean that they have better bargaining power? In this case, yes. And then economic and political recoveries. So what happens to a government after things go awry, after an empire implodes? What happens after that? It's not like it just stops. People are still there. It keeps going. So understanding how there was a recovery period and then going on from there. So we're going to put all the pieces together. This is the very first period among the 4 periods. And there's more to come. I mean, the world didn't stop at 1450, you know that. But let's take a look at some more questions with these key takeaways in mind. Another pretty picture. So recognizing immediately that you have land and then you have trade routes. Nope, voyages. Yeah, so you don't want to make an assumption automatically. If you see dotted lines, you don't want to assume that it was, oh, that's where everyone's trading. No, this is one particular individual, and this is where he went. So we're going to move over to the questions, and you're going to consider which answer is directly supported by the map. They're not disconnected. It's not just, oh, a nice picture, and then here's a question. They must be connected. So I'm going to give you 1 minute for that. David found my timer, and I'm not going to cover it up this time. You may get started. All right. So you got to play the game. It's like the Sesame Street game. Which one of the things doesn't belong? In this case, it's which one of these things does for sure, definitely 100% belong. You need the right group of people. You need the right idea. It has to be supported by the map. What is the one that's going to work? It is A. So you've got the right group of people. So I said those weren't trading routes. That was one person. But why was he doing all that? To see if they could incorporate trading routes, so that they can get their tributary system and then also more of an interregional system going on, so they can interact with more people. One final question. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to answer this final question. This question has a whole story to it, and it includes the fact that in 1433, these voyages ended, and then Portugal sort of took over this business. So this does require information that you should have learned already. If this does not look familiar to you, that's okay. You have time to study. In fact, you probably have more time than you thought you would have to study. So we went through, that was our goal today, to go through test-like questions, have you consider how you're doing on these questions and what you need to study more, and also to thank you for taking time out of your day to join us. We put this together because we knew that you'd want to know how you're doing in AP. Even if everything else in your life is really stressful right now, you can come and de-stress with us. We will be here to help you. We have 2 more sessions coming up today, and then we have AP World History running tomorrow and all next week. It was a true pleasure to work with you all. I really appreciate your participation. I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen. Oops, if I can. And get ready for the next person. Let's see. And then, oh, here it is. Perfect. I think. Yep. Awesome. All right. Thanks again so much. We really had a great time. David and I are big nerds and hope that you will come back and hang out with us. We really did have a wonderful time.